Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Would you like to
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I call Simeon Brown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to take a call on the Subordinate Legislation Confirmation Bill number 2, which the National Party will be supporting, to great relief by the Leader of the House, no doubt. They will be supporting this bill, which typically is not a bill that is one which attracts a lot of debate or attracts a lot of controversy. This bill does have an important purpose, and that purpose is to prevent the revocation of certain subordinate legislation that, by virtue of acts of Parliament under which it is made, are revoked if they are not confirmed by an Act of Parliament. So this is Parliament's ability to be able to scrutinise the lawmaking, the subordinate legislation which is made under Acts of Parliament, to ensure that it is in line with the intent of Parliament. And then this legislation gives Parliament that ability, if it is not satisfied, for those to be lapsed if they were found not to be within the intent that Parliament gave to that legislation in the first place. And as a member of the Select Committee, the Regulations Review Select Committee, we were able to look at this, the regulations which are presented in this bill, and we were able to hear submissions. We received submissions from a number of government departments, from New Zealand Customs Service, Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Ministry of Social Development and Ministry of Primary Industries. And they all said that they believed that they were needed, they needed to be confirmed to ensure that they were not automatically revoked. And so these confirmations, as the Minister has outlined, cover a range of pieces of legislation, from the Animal Products Act, which includes some fees and charges and levies, the Antarctica Environmental Protection Act. Most interesting, I think, came under the Commodities Levies Act, where there were levies on regarding kiwi fruit, rock lobster, power, arable crops, maize, cereal, silage, and asparagus. And I'm sure all the Green Party would be very interested in that one. The ones around the asparagus were very important regulations which are included in this bill. Asparagus, that's right, Mr. Van der Molen. Appreciate your input there. The Customs and Excise Act included a number of other excises, and that particularly focuses on the tobacco products indexation and the 10% increase in tobacco excise, which was confirmed, as well as the indexation of excise on alcoholic beverages. So this does cover a wide range of regulations, and the point of contention, which I'm glad to hear the Minister saying is going to be addressed through the Standing Orders Committee or Standing Orders Review, the point of contention which was discussed at the committee and is outlined in the report back to the House, is over the process around when the committee should be able to review the regulations. And the national members of the committee believe that the committee's scrutiny would be more effective if it was able to consider the instruments prior to their finalisation. The way that the process currently works is that the regulations are made, and then this bill is brought to the Select Committee, and at that point we scrutinise and then we make recommendations to the House. The national members believe that what should take place is that when the regulations are made, they should then be scrutinised, before they're finalised, they should be scrutinised, and then the process should go towards the confirmation. And this would allow the committee to report to the relevant minister, if necessary, before the instruments come into force. And this anomaly is particularly, I think, important when it comes to duties or levies, because currently under the current process, if an act which allows for these levies to be put in place, if levies are put in place, then found to be inconsistent, or the Regulations Review Committee reviews those levies and finds them to be required to be revoked, then currently the process is, well, they've been in place, they've been they've been in law essentially, and those levies have been charged. And then the committee then looks at those regulations and may decide to revoke them. And at that point, those duties or levies, in most instances, will have to be refunded to the people upon which they have been charged. So this leads to a potential situation where essentially levies are charged, and then the Regulations Review Committee reviews those regulations which set up the levies and says, actually, we don't believe that they fit within the purpose of the Act, and then they are revoked potentially by Parliament. If that's the recommendation by the Regulations Review Committee, Parliament then passes, will pass an amendment to the Subordinate Confirmation Bill, and then they are revoked, and then a refund of those levies will have to be put in place. So what we're saying is that that process should be reversed, and that the regulations should be reviewed first prior to them being struck. So the requirement for those levies to then be refunded is no longer in place. So that's something which I'm very glad to hear that the Minister is going to look into as part of the Standing Orders review. I think that's something which I think all parliamentarians would find incredibly interesting and would be quite interested in being part of. I certainly would be. I know there'll be many members on this side of the House, and I'm sure there'll be others on the other side which would have a range of different thoughts, as no doubt they will have had experience with constituents who've come to talk to them about different levies which have been struck, about when and how they were struck, the process of consultation, and whether that was done through due process, and will be very interested in whether the Regulations Review Committee can play a more substantive role in actually looking at these regulations prior to them being struck. And I think that will be certainly something which all parliamentarians will be very interested in. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation. I'm really pleased that the Minister has indicated that that conversation will happen. I'm sure it will be something which all Parliament can agree on. It'll be something which will be very, very interesting indeed. So, Madam Speaker, without further ado, I just want to say commend this bill to the House.
I call Nicola Willis.
I rise to speak also on the subordinate.